10 years ago, arguably the best Doctor Who series opener aired for the very first time. The 11th Hour had a mammoth task on its hands, and yet somehow it managed to pull it off to become one of the most beloved post-regeneration stories of the entire show. It successfully established both the 11th Doctor and the Stephen Moffat era of the show, and ultimately it proved that Doctor Who could survive without the hugely popular David Tennant. Now, 10 years on, I felt it would be the perfect time to share some facts about the episode that you most likely didn't already know about. These are all things that I've learnt from listening to the audio commentary and reading the episode breakdown in the 11th Doctor Companion Volume 1, so if you haven't already experienced both of these, then you should hopefully learn something new about the episode. Here are 10 things you didn't know about the 11th Hour. The 11th Hour used to have a different title. In the audio commentary for the episode, Stephen Moffat revealed that the episode was originally called The Doctor Returns, which I think we can all agree is nowhere near as interesting or cleverly titled as The 11th Hour. The first thing shot for the episode was the final scene, funnily enough. According to the 11th Doctor Companion Volume 1, the scene of the Doctor and Amy in the TARDIS at the end of the episode was filmed on Thursday the 24th of September 2009, making it the first bit of footage filmed for the 11th Hour. Just as a point of interest, the pre-title scenes of the Doctor and Amy in the TARDIS at the start of The Time of Angels were also recorded on this day. Speaking of the final scene of the 11th Hour, it turns out there's a continuity error in it, as Stephen Moffat explains.
Look at the tweed Matt is wearing in the long shot and compare it to close-ups of his hands. Okay? Fans, you'll love this. Right, there he is in his in one tweed jacket, and yet, please cut to a close-up sometime soon. You'll see that he's actually wearing the wrong tweed jacket in the close-ups.
Really?
There he is, see, wrong tweed. And indeed, Matt will tell you, there is wrong tweed. It's not even Matt, actually.
Nobody likes a smart ass.
Did you spot that immediately, Stephen?
No, I didn't have a clue. Matt told me. Because it wasn't him. He went home and they banged the wrong jacket on the other guy.
Remember that scene in the first half of the episode where the camera pans around Amy's house at night and we see a figure run past? We assume it's Prisoner Zero, but it turns out it's actually meant to be the Doctor.
That is actually Matt Smith skating past the camera. And we were going to use that shot in episode 13 for the scene where he goes out to pick up the sleeping Amy. It just didn't quite edit in very well, partly because in episode 13 Amy was shown to be asleep outside, and it did look as though she'd fallen asleep rather suddenly.
So forevermore that is going to appear to be Prisoner Zero.
Yeah. If you watch very
that
carefully, you'll see it's actually Matt. If you freeze frame your way through it,
But it makes sense that it was him, because he did go back to that night, didn't he? So.
Yeah, and you can still think of it as him. The only one thing is, if you freeze frame your way through it, I think you can just about tell he's wearing the wrong costume, because obviously when he comes back in the future, he's wearing his bow tie.
Ever wondered what Prisoner Zero's crime was? Well, in the audio commentary for the episode, Stephen Moffat answers that question.
I did actually write a scene about what his crime was and why he was locked up, and I just realised no one would care.
What was his crime?
It was impersonating an army or something. I had some bizarre idea that he'd invaded some other planet by impersonating an army. This is a ridiculous idea, which I was quite glad to get rid of, because I thought, well, if he can do that, what could be beyond him?
Originally, the scene in Jeff's bedroom where the Doctor contacts the experts on space was set in a classroom.
This was originally a completely different scene that we couldn't
Yes, it
schedule.
was.
It was a scene in a classroom. He rushes
I
into
remember that.
but you remember
Jeff and the Clevers.
Jeff and the Clevers, and there was a whole bunch of students in a classroom. He'd run in and he did all this stuff in front of them, and then got them to use their laptops to communicate. But we just couldn't. It wasn't possible. It was already bursting at the seams, the schedule. So we ended up with
Going
a
back to
bedroom.
Mrs. Angelo's.
Another scene that changed during production was the standoff between the Doctor and Prisoner Zero, where the Sonic gets destroyed. According to the 11th Doctor Companion Volume 1, the scene had to be rewritten and reassembled in the cutting room, for some unknown reason. A lot of what we see in the finished episode was filmed on a pickup day between the filming of Cold Blood and the Vampires of Venice. The magazine also details the original dialogue that was exchanged. I'm not sure whether the original version of the scene was ever filmed. All I know for certain is that the moment used to be different in the script, at least. What follows is a script I've put together for how the scene may have originally played out, which uses the alternate dialogue. Anything highlighted blue is footage that appears in the finished episode.
Multiform, you see. Disguise itself as anything, but it needs a life feed, a psychic link with a living but dormant mind.
Everyone remembers the iconic scene where the Doctor scares the Atraxi away and Matt Smith truly becomes the Doctor, but this moment wasn't originally in the script.
Now this whole sequence wasn't in the original. If you remember, Piers.
I remember it well. It finished. The climax was in the ward, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he just runs away. And I forget. We just sort of think he didn't have his sort of defining moment, which is this, of course.
It's hard to imagine it without the whole
So it was
costume choosing.
One of the things I wanted particularly was the idea of the moment him first appearing in costume being really important, because he usually isn't. He usually just slips off and chooses his clothes.
The scene where the Doctor gets Amy to trust him is one of the highlights of the episode, but we nearly missed out on seeing it, as at one point it was cut from the episode entirely.
There was a point in the edit where we wondered whether we needed this scene, wasn't there?
There was a point in the edit where we actually had cut it, and when we first showed it to our three regulars in your flat, it wasn't in. It was,
really?
And we hadn't
Was it
taken
not
the
there
decision. And it was right at the time.
We wanted it to be urgent, didn't we? We wanted to keep saving the world.
But you know what? The
keep
critical.
them moving.
There was an earlier line which was when she says, when he's sitting on the ground, he said, "Are you just going to sit there?" And he said, "Why shouldn't I sit here?" And she said, "Because I waited 12 years."
That's right.
And that killed this scene because they'd already done that. So once we cut the earlier dialogue, this seemed a unique moment as opposed to a repeat.
Thank goodness it is back. I think it's probably one of my favourite moments of the episode.
It's beautiful.
The final fact I wanted to share about the 11th Hour is that there is a deleted scene of Amy and Rory talking whilst en route to the hospital. Again, I've used the dialogue from the 11th Doctor Companion Volume 1 to put together a script for how the scene may have played out. So there we have it. That's 10 facts about the 11th hour that hopefully you didn't already know about. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it in the future, please leave a like and let me know what you think of the 11th hour in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. I shall see you next time.